Thank you for joining me for another quick hits conversation. I'm Dr. Robyn, aka Mental MacGyver. I provide luxury level high performance support and coaching to executives, founders, celebrities, and athletes. With me today, I have Inga Hebdon. She is a leadership and personal impact coach, helping people increase their impact, their ability to lead, influence, and act strategically. I have Fredericks. He's the CEO of On Point Partners, where they provide back office services for small businesses. They make business easy. And I have Haase. He's the co-founder and CEO at Meta Ed Partners. He is developing global, virtual, and live conferences to support the underprivileged and building programs in the US to help high school students understand how money works. The question I have today, how do you address a problem with a conflict avoidant person? Gary, kick us off.
I try to start off by looking for similarities and getting on the same page with the person. And then we move on from there and everything becomes about me helping them be successful. Hopefully that reduces a lot of conflict, but I've been dealing with people lately where I don't care what you do. They are going to argue every point, no matter what. I try to let them say what's on their mind and then kind of move on. And then the other people that avoid conflict, they're like freaking out because if I'm saying, if you did this one thing a little better, you'd be a superstar. And they misinterpret it. And they might, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be not performing well. And you have to say, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you're doing great, but you can do greater. You can be better. We all can. So it's really difficult to deal with people that are afraid of conflict and people that embrace it.
In addition to that, I think it varies greatly what kind of problem we really want to address. If the problem lies within the behavior of that actual person, or if it's somewhere around them where they have to deal with somebody else within their team and there's a conflict and they need to address that. I find it always very helpful to bear in mind that often enough, those people who are conflict avoidant, they have somewhere within them the need of peace and not disturbing the peace. It's almost like the ostrich putting the head into the sand. It's like, oh no, I can't see it, so it's not there. So it's really crucial to have that conversation first and really build that personal connection with that so that you're on the same page, and then help them understand kind of the bigger picture of, well, what would happen if we're not addressing it, and really focus on behaviors rather than having a conversation about beliefs or the identity of the person and what that might lead to.
I can kind of concur with that, and I agree with you, Gary. You want to kind of approach a person with empathy, and it's challenging to deal with these folks because if they put up their walls, they can actually become narcissistic at one point and disruptive, and that's a difficult challenge for if you're an employer. A, do you want that person around? B, your hands are tied because you have HR saying you're not allowed to treat people differently. Everybody must be treated equally and the same. Yet everybody's different and needs to be treated differently. But I agree. I think you start with how are things going? What do you feel is going well? What are areas maybe you need help in that I can help and support you with? Are there issues or concerns that you have that this is a great time to talk about that and bring it up?
Two things that I start with. One is don't let the problem build. I feel like when you have someone who's conflict avoidant, it becomes very easy to just kind of, well, just ignore it until it gets really bad. I call that the volcano method to conflict resolution. But don't avoid it. Have the conversations when they're little. But then the second piece is, if you preemptively say to someone, I know that difficult conversations aren't really your favorite thing. Can we just sit in this and do this for like 5 minutes and see if we can make some progress? I find that they're more likely to say, okay, I'm in, and try it if you kind of warn them. The other question I wanted to ask you was, how do you know if someone's conflict avoidant or if they're using it as a strategy to not have the conversation? One is, I'm purposefully not talking to you. And the other one is, I'm super uncomfortable. I don't want to have to do this.
I think it's very difficult to pick that up right away. Mm-hmm. I think that comes over a series of conversations or questions and things like that. I know a lot of people that want to avoid conflict at all costs. But then there's others that, like you said, they're kind of using it as a strategy. And it just takes some time and some feel and reading body language. I try to go into every conversation thinking the best is going to happen and being trusting and so forth. Hard to do.
I would say, do you know the person before you're going into that conversation to begin with? If you're in that conversation with them, you probably have worked with them and kind of understand them a little bit better. But if somebody's faking it to get something in return, you got to ask, is this the right place for you? Do you believe in what we're trying to do here with this organization and what we're trying to accomplish? Is that of interest to you? And kind of get them to think about, is this the right place? Because maybe they can come to the conclusion that maybe it isn't. And if it is, okay, again, how can I help you?
Inga, how do you know if someone is legitimately avoiding conflict because they're afraid of it, or if they're trying to use it as a strategy?
It's a good question. When they're legitimately uncomfortable about it, I think it shows up in their body language. Or in extreme cases, they would actually leave the room if there's a conflict somewhere around them. I've seen that happen, but usually it's the shifting. So as soon as people start to have a little bit more of a heated discussion, it's not insulting or anything like that. But as soon as there's a difference of opinion and it just gets a little bit more energetic, the people who are uncomfortable with those situations, they usually tend to become more quiet. If they're not quiet, they try to mediate. It just in order to keep the peace, or change topics. Right? Those for me are really clear indicators that someone is like, oh no, I don't really want to deal with all this. Or then, like Gary said, in the extreme case, no, actually, I don't see it, and they're completely pushed away when you address them directly.
Have you ever had a situation where you've been avoidant, and what caused you to want to avoid the conflict?
I avoid it if I think I'm going to say something that I really shouldn't say, because I tend to be a pretty hands-on communication person. I'm not afraid of conflict.
Yeah, I have to sometimes remind myself that other people are not as interested in having heated discussions than I am. I love a good argument. As long as it comes from the right place, and we're not talking about insulting people, but having a really nice heated discussion, I thoroughly enjoy that. And I have to remind myself that not everybody is like me.
You know, that's interesting, Inga, because I'm half German. So in my family, we love a good argument. And I spent 20 years in the trading pits, in fighting, spitting, punching, kicking, stabbing, whatever it took, and fighting all day long. But at the end of the day, we'd go out and play golf, or go grab the wives and go out to dinner. But I'm more interested in resolution than I am in argument. But if you want to have a good argument, I'll play.
I will avoid a conflict if I think it's going to escalate. I've had a situation recently where I was on the phone with someone, and she made a comment about me and how I am. And I said, I'm not like that. And she said, yes, you are. I just avoided the conversation. If she wants to believe that I'm the kind of person that she thinks that I am, and it goes against who I find myself to be, I'm not going to argue with her, because her experience is hers to have.
And I'd like to ask that question then. Do the rest of you, do you avoid the people that don't believe in you, or they don't know you, but they have an opinion that's a false opinion of you, and it's a negative one? Do we avoid those people?
I worked on Wall Street for 20 years, so I have had the experience of going toe to toe with somebody, dropping F-bombs and screaming at the top of your lungs at each other. And it's just hardened me, I guess. I might go to somebody and say, what's your problem with me? Let's talk about it, see if we can fix it. But if it's a business thing or something where we have to get something done together, then yeah, I'm going to address it right up front.
Yeah, I agree. It really depends. If it sounds so harsh, but if they're worth it, or if the relationship is worth it, the different circumstances, and in business, is there a project you have to work together on? Is there a common goal? Do you need to make it work? Then of course you need to not avoid them. You need to address it and try to address the elephant in the room, basically, and get to the bottom of things. If you have a conflict or potential conflict with somebody, or they don't like you and you potentially never see them again, who cares? Walk away.
I'm going to have to cut this conversation off here, because that is our 10 minutes. Thank you so much for doing this with me, and I look forward to speaking to each of you again very soon.